Good evening and welcome to this North West Area Planning meeting on today's 2nd of November 2022. My name is Councillor Maddie Thompson and I'm the chairman of this committee. Before we commence the business of the meeting, there are a few housekeeping issues to run through. We are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. When invited to speak, please turn on your microphone and speak clearly, referencing a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Please keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible and ensure your microphones remain off when not speaking, as this is important for the live streaming to be heard clearly. Finally, can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber and advise that the fire exit is the door behind this top table. Members, there is no members update this evening, not that I know about anyway. So item 2, please, Miss Bird, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Durham, Councillor Morley and Councillor Stephens. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. So item 3, members, it's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on 5th of October, found on pages 7 to 10, are approved as a true and accurate record. May I take them as read? Thank you. Okay, you're racing ahead. I so propose. Would anybody second that, please?
I'll second.
Okay, I actually spotted Councillor Morgan first. Thank you. Any matters of accuracy for anyone to raise? I'll take that as a no. So can we accept those by assent, members, please? Thank you. Right, item 4 is declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interest relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. And members are reminded they're also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. Right, Councillor Keyes, going first.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Non-pecuniary interest, agenda number 6, 22-00814. I went to Young Farmers with the applicant, but we've just worked out that was 24 years ago.
As long as that?
As long as that, yes. I know I don't look it.
Can't imagine. Councillor Fleming, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. A registrable as a member of Essex County Council, who are statutory consultees, and also registrable for agenda item 6. So I will be leaving the chamber after the first application. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor White, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a non-pecuniary interest that I know the applicant of agenda item 6 because he sits on Purleigh Parish Council, which is in my ward.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that takes us to item 5, which is the first planning application, land of Willows End, Stephenson Road, North Fambridge. So there are no public speakers on this one, so if we can have the presentation, please, Ms. Dungley.
Thank you, Chairman. Outline planning permission with all matters reserved is sought for the residential development of the site for up to 2 dwellings. The outline application procedure allows for applicants to identify specific matters for consideration. The application has identified that this application is to consider the principle of development only. Should outline permission be granted for the proposal, the considerations of layout, access, scale, appearance and landscaping would form a subsequent reserved matters application. This is the site location plan. The site is located on the northern side of Stephenson Road, just outside of the defined settlement boundary of North Fambridge, which is located on the edge of the site here. The site is located at the end of a run of residential properties along Stephenson Road, and the train station serving North Fambridge is located approximately 250 metres away from the site here. This station is on the Southminster branch line from Whitford to Southminster. This is the block plan. Due to the outline nature of the application, details relating to the layout, access and appearance would form a subsequent reserved matters application. This is the existing tree constraints plan. These are photographs of the application site taken from Stephenson Road. These are photographs taken from the front of the site and looking into the site from the existing access. This is a photograph of the David Wilson Homes development located south of the site. And these are photographs of the existing bungalows and chalet bungalows already located along Stephenson Road. As discussed within the committee report, the proposed development is considered to represent sustainable development and would assist, albeit marginally, in addressing the current 5-year housing land supply shortfall. Subject to the conditions listed in section 8 of the report, it is considered that the application site would be able to accommodate 2 dwellings in a form that would appear in keeping with the prevailing pattern of development within the area and would be large enough to provide adequate room for car parking and private amenity space for 2 dwellings. The proposal is therefore considered to comply with the policies within the local development plan and is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And while I remember it, this is in fact Ms Dungate's last North West with us. She's not leaving just yet, but this is her last go here with us. So, moving on.
Thank you.
Masters new. Right, members, I'll open the discussion and trust that a proposal of some sort will come out of that. We've got a recommendation for approval, but I shan't put that on the table just yet. So who'd like to go? Spotted Councillor Morgan first, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm just sort of a bit disappointed, probably not as disappointed as the North Fambridge Parish Council are, that the officers haven't really addressed their objections as raised in their representations. In particular, the fact that it is outside the settlement boundary and conflicts with policy S8. It's not one of the 13 exceptions. And I'm particularly interested about that because of what's maybe coming up later on. I just wondered perhaps the officers could perhaps expand a bit on their reasons for not taking account of those objections rather than just simply saying noted.
Okay. Ms Dungate, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, through you. Within section 5.2 of the report relates to the principle of development, and as discussed, although the application site is located on the periphery of the defined settlement boundary, there have been multiple appeal decisions within North Fambridge that have stated that sites within this area and further away from the site are considered to be sustainable. So despite the fact that the defined settlement is outside of the defined settlement boundary, because of those appeal decisions and because we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, we have to consider the accessibility and sustainability of the site, which is discussed within section 5.2 of the report. So that's why that consideration has been made.
I can just come back on it. It just strikes me, I'm just considering not just this application but others, that this business of the settlement boundary just seems to be a bit of a sort of moving feast to be either taken account of or not, as the case may be.
Is that one for you, Mr Johnson? Or?
Is that specific to this application? Because I think Miss Dungate answered in respect of that point on the parish's comments, but are you? Perhaps
I was more of a general comment. Perhaps in that I would be interested to your view as to how important one should take that settlement boundary.
Well, really, I think Miss Dungate answered that, and I think it's within the principal section where it specifically talks about the status of the settlement boundary, particularly in respect of whether one has a 5-year housing land supply or not, and paragraph 11D is triggered because, particularly in the case of Moldham, we don't have the 5-year housing land supply. The whole issue around whether policies are considered to be out of date or relevant or in line with government thinking about the provision of housing. So that's really the context of how the whole settlement boundary issue is considered. If the 5-year housing land is supplied, then the settlement boundary and development is to be taking place within the settlement is then given precedent because we're delivering on the wider government objectives for providing housing. If we don't, in a way, sort of saying, well, your policies aren't delivering in the way that it should, because you're not complying with the stated policies of providing the requisite amount of development within the 5-year period in accordance with your plan. So basically your plan's failing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chairman, for letting me speak. Right, I've got a few queries, really. On every other application we've had in various different parts of the district, and I will say including one of my own, an unmade road was classed as unsustainable, and therefore it should be refused because you cannot expect people to walk along an unmade road. So that's why I'm a bit surprised that under 5.2.9, you acknowledge it's an unmade road, you acknowledge that it's not good to walk along because there's no street lights or anything else, indeed you can see it on here. So I wondered why that applied to every other site in the district, but it doesn't apply to this one. So that's my first one. The next one is under section 5.3, which is housing mix. You also go on to say that, well, this is what we need, but actually we don't know what it's going to be. And my concern, because of the outline nature, I think it's very unfair on the other residents that they can't comment on what it is. And from experience, when we get these applications come in, by the time we get the actual house plans come in, they go, oh, sorry, you've already approved it, you can't turn it down because you'll lose the appeal. So that for me is a problem. But then the other problem I've got is with the access. If we go back to the site, all of the other houses have clear access from the unmade road. And it appears to me, looking at this plan, that it's only a tiny weeny bit of road that goes there. So there isn't actually any access because there's no existing access. So you're not even using the existing road. Is it not just stuck on the end and there's only a tiny wee cube? So unlike all the other houses that have got clear driveways going off of the unmade road, it looks to me like this has got a driveway or a very small driveway. So both houses are going to have to be serviced by a little tiny block, rather than every other house that's in the road has a proper driveway of its own. Is that right, or am I wrong?
Yeah, through you, Chairman, if I can come back on the 3 points made. So as far as I've recorded it, the initial comment was made about the unmade road and why we are recommending approval for that. So obviously, without knowing the specifics of the other sites you're referring to, they may be contextually different in that they're not 250 metres away from a train station, which serves other villages and therefore residents can access other services and facilities quite easily. And as I've already noted in section 5.2 of the report, there have been multiple appeal decisions that have stated that this area is sustainable, including Stephenson Road. And whilst acknowledging that future occupiers would have to walk along a road that doesn't have lights, those appeal decisions are material weight in terms of determining this application. So it would not be consistent to move away from the approach already taken by multiple inspectors about this area.
But should we not have the same approach district-wide if it's deemed to be sustainable in everything apart from the unmade road? Should we not have a consistent approach? Because I know I'm going to get issues after this one with people saying, well, why was it not okay for my unmade road? But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, just to add to that, I think...
Too many microphones, sorry.
Yeah. What Ms. Dungate is saying is that it's the specific circumstances of this application. And again, that's something that we generally do say. We speak to the specific circumstances of the application in front of us. The specific circumstances here that there are these other these appeal decisions within this area, speaking about the same sort of access and travelling issues, the unmade road, unlit, but still consider that given the distances to services and the railway station, they are considered to be sustainable. We will still continue to be making the argument about the unsustainability in those areas where we don't have this sort of precedent or these material considerations in terms of appeal decisions. So this is peculiar to this area here. So we have to take cognizance of that. we can't make the same argument when there's 3 appeal decisions basically saying the area is sustainable. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
If I could also add to that, Chairman, in a lot of other cases as well, when it's an unmade road or it's a road is that future occupiers would have to walk down, it's normally a road which is the national speed limit is unsafe, and in this instance the road, although unmade, is a residential street which is 250 metres from the train station.
Right, okay, and we can go on to the access onto the site, and there's a couple of other things also I wanted to raise. So this access here, that to me seems very small to try and get to 2 houses, and I've got concerns you'll be able to get the driveway in. It's certainly not going to match the linear pattern of all the other houses, and why does the roadway not go all the way along the application site like all the other houses in the road do? I mean, for me, this is a big design flaw.
Can I come back on the other points raised
Yes,
about
of
the
course.
housing mix?
Yes.
So the point raised about the housing mix, as stated within section 5.3 of the report, although the housing mix hasn't been specifically stated, we have recommended a condition to say that it should be 3 bedrooms only to meet the identified need of the district. And then coming on to your point about access, this road is unadopted. There have been no highways objections. So they have included this area within the red line, but the specific detailed nature of access would be addressed at the reserved matters stage.
But would you be able to fit a fire engine through there if somebody's got cars parked there? Because presumably the houses would have to be in the same position as the house next to them. And what I'm saying is, if people had cars, 1 car on each driveway, would you still be able to get a fire engine through? Because that looks really narrow. Obviously, I don't know how many metres it is. I just think it's just a really poor design not to have the access going along the front like all the other houses do.
Mr Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is an outline application, so specifically matters of detailed design are not for consideration.
But if I might come back, my problem is you can't change the red line boundary at the secondary stage of the application. So if the houses, presumably they would have to be in the same road frontage position as the house next to them. So for me, I've got a problem with that, getting the access in. I just think that's a really poor red line boundary, unless they don't own the land. Well, it looks like they do own the land, but to get anything in and out of that site, because we have to be mindful, being careful about what we're allowing permission for. And I think that's just really strange that you've only got one tiny little cube to access 2 houses. But anyway,
Mr Johnson,
thank-
that would
yeah.
the highways remit, presumably.
Yeah,
highways don't comment because it's a private
yeah,
road.
If I can just say that this outline application where all matters are reserved means we're only considering the principle. The subsequent reserve matters applications, if this application were to be approved, would be subject to the usual detailed scrutiny. It could well be the case that in a reserve matters application it fails. There's no guarantee that in an outline application, particularly of this nature being granted, that a reserve matters application would be approved. I mean, I'll probably say most outline applications, at least access may be one of the considerations, but it doesn't have to be. And that's the case here.
yeah, I'm just...
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Just really surprised. The other thing is, am I right in thinking they haven't actually submitted ecological and habitats reports? That's something else I read further through.
Through you, Chairman, no, they have submitted those reports.
They are there now. There's what I was reading, so they haven't got them. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. I've got Councillor Fleming, Councillor Keys, and Councillor Siddle. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Hannah. My concern with this particular site is we recently refused an application in Stephenson Road, which I understand was because it was sort of backfill. So my concern with that application site, just looking, it's sort of narrower, is that, if we did grant outline here is that they could apply for a house at the front and a house at the back. So, and again, given Councillor White's concerns about the access, I'm concerned about that as well. So wanted your comments on that. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. Yes, as you have stated, there was an application here which was refused and dismissed because of the impact on the character of the area, being that it's not isolated, but I'm going to use the term isolated, along a road where there's no other development, and it would constitute backland development behind Stephenson Road. Obviously, this area of land is completely different. It's at the end of a residential road, and in terms of this being outline in nature, we're not dealing with the detailed design of the layout of the site, which would come at reserve matter stage. And obviously, if they come in with a design and layout that was not reflective of the prevailing character of the area, then it's unlikely that we would support it. So it is considered that they could come forward with a design and layout that would reflect the character of the area, i.e. a linear fronting development, not two houses in a tandem arrangement. So again, that would be considered at the reserve matter stage and is not for consideration as part of this application, but it is considered that a reasonable layout and design could be achieved.
Of course, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm also thinking about Rectory Road. There was an application at the end of that road. I think there were 2 applications there and 2 appeals refused. The inspector said in his view that the village stopped there just short of it. And so just looking at, I mean, you can't see from that plan, if you went over the railway, so yeah, so just sort of over the railway, that site would be sort of in close proximity. So I just have concerns about extending the boundary in this way. Thank you.
Through you, Chairman. Yes, I'm familiar with that site. I think it's very different in that it's got agricultural buildings located on it and has a completely different visual appearance within the street than this site does, which is very contained and doesn't really contribute to the rural countryside. There's also another appeal decision that's been made further north of the defined settlement, which was allowed at appeal on a road that is not made and doesn't have the same character as this street scene. So this is considered to be not as harmful to the character of the area as those other applications. So that's why we're recommending approval in this instance.
Thank you. Councillor Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor White stole a bit of my thunder. Yeah, can we go back to the pictures, please? If you walk down the unmade track, I know where we are as such. When you get onto Fambridge Road, isn't it? Fambridge Road, is there a footpath all the way down to the railway station?
Chairman, I don't believe there is.
On an application in Mrs. Fleming's and Mrs. White's ward the other month, Maldon Council was saying we couldn't have the development because there was no footpath. Yet today we're saying we can. It's sustainable, and because there's a station there, but you can't walk down the road because there's no footpath. I seem to be struggling sometimes with some of these reasons why we're refusing them, and then all of a sudden we can pass it, yet there's no footpath. And also Councillor Sill and myself have got some applications that have come up in an unmade track, and they use the unmade track that you can't have building. So how can we have no footpath at the end onto Fambridge Road where you're saying that you can walk to the train station? Is that okay now?
Through you,
please,
Chairman.
Mr. Derrick.
As I have stated, and as the officer of the committee report states, there have been 3 appeal decisions within this area that have stated that North Fambridge is a sustainable location, including Stephenson Road, even though you'd have to walk down the road, which is unlit. That is a material consideration for this application. I'm not aware of the sites that you're referring to, whether there is those appeal decisions and inspectors have stated that it's sustainable, whether the roads that you're talking about are 60 miles per hour national speed limit roads. The context of this site, walking down a quiet residential street leading to the train station, is completely different to walking over a mile along an unlit road to a bus stop that is only served by buses every so often, compared to a railway line that's served by frequent services to neighbouring villages. And we have to have consistency in our decision making, and we are being consistent with inspectors' decisions in this area by recommending approval for this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, just to support what Ms Dungate was saying, I have the appeal decision on the Buller Road site in front of me here. And just at section 7, just to read out the inspector's description of the area, to which he then went on to allow the appeal. Buller Road is a single carriageway private road without segregated footways. It joins the adopted highway network at Fambridge Road, an unlit single carriageway road with a narrow footway on its western side. Fambridge Road in the vicinity of Buller Road has several side roads leading off it, with residential development fronting them. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Keyes. Councillor Siddle. You haven't spoken yet, so you get the next go in.
I know. Thank you, Chairman. So in terms of this, we have to take into context the fact that other applications that have been refused were then approved by the planning inspector. That is a really important consideration. In terms of the shared access, we don't all live in houses where we have our own driveway. I have a shared access on my house. It doesn't cause any problems for me or my neighbours in terms of that situation. And it's unlikely that there would be backfill on this. Part of the design, I should imagine, is that the houses will be in line with each other. Otherwise, we're just not going to pass it when the reserve matters comes forward. In terms of the situation, this is a residential road, which there are existing houses, and this is the next house to it. And settlement boundaries is an outdated policy. We're stymied by it because it's in our local plan at the moment, but it's a constraint, it's an artificial constraint in terms of how villages grow and how villages develop. So we need to think about that this is a sustainable development. It is close to the train station, it is close to other facilities, so therefore it's a sustainable location. The outline, I think, if there's 2 houses going to be there, is acceptable. So therefore I would recommend approval of this application.
Yes, please.
Chairman, sorry, thank you, Councillor Siddle. Just about the footpath, I have just looked on Google Maps, and there is a footpath leading to the train station, both on Fambridge Road down here. Obviously wouldn't relate to this site, but they would just have to walk down here and cross this road. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you. Can we just go back to the sort of how sustainable North Fambridge is? I just wanted to point out a few facts to people that aren't familiar with North Fambridge. There are no shops, nothing. No village shop. There is a pub some distance from here that they don't sell snacks, or you can't go and get provisions there. There's no school. So if, let's just say, a young couple with small children bought one of those houses, they would have to drive to school, Cold Norton or Purleigh, or even older children, they would probably be driven to a school. North Fambridge has constraints in terms of, its facilities. There aren't any facilities. It has a train station, that's it. Used, commuters use it if they're going into London, and that's it. You know, you don't use the train to go to Sainsbury's and Southwood and Ferrers, because you get to the train station, you can't get there. So, you know, anyone who buys in North Fambridge has to drive to the supermarket.
It's the same in Little Tottenham. It's the same in all small villages.
Sorry, not across the floor, please, councillors.
Could I come
Yes,
back on
please.
that? Yes, as stated already through you, Chairman, the inspectors have stated that North Fambridge is a sustainable location in which occupiers could use the train station to meet their day-to-day needs, to access facilities in neighbouring villages. Within the council's rural facilities and settlement survey dated this year, North Fambridge is named as a medium-sized village in comparison to Woodham Mortimer, which is lower in the scale, which has been named as a hamlet. So in comparison to other areas within Malden, North Fambridge is actually deemed to be more sustainable and more accessible to other services and facilities. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, councillor Fleming.
I'm just looking at the date of these appeal decisions. I noticed that they were before the development. I can't remember the name of it in North Fambridge. Yeah, so yeah, it was due to have local facilities were supposed to go in there. Shops were supposed to go in there, and actually, although Councillor White and I voted against it, that was this committee approved the removal of the facilities and allowed extra housing to go in there. So I'm just a little bit concerned, Hannah, that you're quoting these appeal decisions that are not that relevant to today, what is on the ground at the moment.
Thank you. I believe the most recent one was 2018, and that's following our local plan and the not the latest version of the MPPF, but the introduction of the MPPF, which was 2012. And we have had subsequent applications in 2021, 2020, 2019 that we have determined as a council and deemed this a sustainable location. We would not be seen as being consistent if we now moved away from that assessment of this village. Thank you.
And to be fair, that employment area wasn't necessarily going to be village shops, was it? And they weren't there then anyway.
Oh no, I think, sorry Chair, there was due to be a store there, quite a big store from memory. That's correct, isn't it? Yeah. That's right, yeah.
Right. But it wasn't there yet. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. I say my problem still is with access, and if you go to the Buller Road one and you look at the application in Buller Road, there was no problem with the access from there. Okay, it's on an unmade road, but you hadn't got a very, very small little cube to access it. And I just think with the constraints of the access, I don't think it would be appropriate to grant outline permission because we don't know how the layout's going to work. And I think with this site, we'd need to have detailed plans to see if it was a suitable location or not. And I think the problem is if we approve it, we're going to get what we had on that other big housing estate was, well, you've agreed it in principle, now you've got to agree anyway, there's nothing you can do, so they'll be able to orientate the houses whichever way they choose. And I just think there's insufficient information to determine the application with the issues on the access. That's my thoughts. And as we say, every application site onto its own, and we won the other appeal with the backland development, and this is rural in its nature, and it is a clear stop to the existing development, and it is the clear end of the road, and they're saying that it's on that road. There's only a teeny weeny little portion of it on that road, so for me it's beyond the end of the road, and that's why there's no access. So I don't know how many other sites we allowed that have got a tiny access like that we've lost appeal, because I don't think I've ever seen a site with access like that. So have we had many like this with a tiny cubed access at the end of a road?
Relevant, isn't it? Mr Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor Dungate. That's not what you're going to do.
I'm sure Ms Dungate will follow on, but I really can only just repeat what was said before. This is an outline application with all matters reserved. They have outlined the actual site. The nature of the access will be subject to any future applications if this were to be approved.
If I come back, it looks like they don't own anything else, so they can't allow other access, because if the blue line was the land that they own, then they don't own anything else to be able to change the access.
Right.
Is that wrong?
The application site is the application site. It's not about the ownership of the site. So as long as the appropriate notices are served, somebody can make an application on any piece of land.
I know that, but what I'm saying is, if they don't own anything else there, if the blue boundary is just the larger rectangle that's there, how would they be able to address the access issues at a later stage?
That really is not a matter for this application, and to be looking to make a decision on that basis would almost be ultra vires.
So,
thank you, Chairman.
Access isn't a thing then. Okay.
Through you, Chairman. Just to confirm as well, I've just measured the plans and the access to the site is around 8 metres in width, which would be sufficient for the passing of 2 cars. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks. Councillor Siddle, that sounded like the beginnings of a proposal.
No, my recommendation is that we approve this application. I'll second that.
In line with the officer's recommendation. Okay, that's proposed, duly seconded by Councillor Keyes. Can we vote on that, please? The officer's recommendation to approve with everything is laid out in the report. Those in favour? Those against? So is that an abstention, Councillor Fleming? Okay. Have you got that all right, Ms Bird?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you. So yes, item 5 is approved in line with the officer's recommendation. So at this point we say good night to Councillor Fleming, and you'll be pleased to hear you won't be missing anything if you're not coming back, which I understand you weren't going to be.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. So next item, second and last planning application is Spar Hill Farm, Chelmsford Road, Purleigh. We do have a member of the public to speak. It's in fact the applicant, and we'll have him speaking after Ms Nungate's presentation. Sorry, falling over my own teeth.
Thank you, Chairman. Full planning permission is sought for the construction of a detached outbuilding to be used as a farm, office and welfare facilities. The site is located within the rural area outside of any defined settlement boundary. This is the site location plan. The application site is located here within an existing mowed open grassland area. It is located south of the existing residential dwelling here, which is associated with Spar Hill Farm, and Spar Hill Farm is located to the northwest of the application site here, where there are a number of large agricultural buildings located around the existing farmyard, and there is also a mobile home located here. This is the block plan showing the proposed location of the building, and this is just a block plan at a larger scale. These are the proposed elevations of the building, showing that it would have a domestic appearance. The south elevation also shows that the proposed entrance to the site would face away from the farmyard onto the open grassland area to the south. This is the proposed ground floor of the building, and this is the proposed first floor. These are photographs of the application site taken from Chelmsford Road. As you can see, there are 2 accesses. The one to the left is to the existing farmyard, and the one to the right is to the existing residential dwelling house, and the proposed development would be served by the access to the right. These are photographs of the existing farmyard and agricultural buildings. This is a photograph of the existing mobile home. And these are photographs facing southeast towards the application site, and the proposed building would be located behind the dense vegetation there. And this is a photograph showing the vegetation that would have to, some of which would have to be removed to facilitate access to the development. As discussed within the committee report, the remote location of the development away from the farmyard is not considered to have been adequately justified and is not considered to be directly linked to the farm, as per the requirements of policy E4, due to its domestic appearance and siting within the open grassland area, which is currently free from built form, and the fact that the building has not been adequately justified. It is considered to have a harmful impact on the rural character and appearance of the area, and the proposal is therefore considered to be contrary to the policies within the local development plan and is recommended for refusal.
Thank you. Mr. Trethern. It is your turn. So, yes, come and pick a seat, any seat. Please make yourself comfortable, use the microphone. We're just getting the timer ready. A little bit, as long as you bend it at the bottom and not the stiff looking bit in the middle. We'll start the clock when you begin to speak, so when you're ready.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. We started our farm 26 years ago with 5 acres. We now employ up to 14 people, 6 of those full-time. Half of our business involves agricultural renewable energy for electricity generation in the southeast. Most of the other half are business in the livestock industry, where we look after 250 cattle and 100 sheep. We work with Essex County Council and Essex Wildlife Trust, helping to manage triple SI areas. Avian flu and TB are as much of an issue to the livestock industry as COVID is to us. Both avian flu and TB is rapidly spreading through Essex. DEFRA insists upon stringent biosecurity, record keeping and appropriate staff welfare facilities. We can no longer work out of an office in our agricultural house, which is 8 foot by 5 foot. Staff and visitors cannot be expected to wash, eat and meet in our home. Our wife has been very poorly and we cannot continue as we are, risking exposure. The officer appears to have ignored our biosecurity and employer needs. The area in question is a 2-acre paddock used for sheep and cattle, adjacent to our current office in our home. The paddock already has some 2,500 square feet of laid concrete, dating back to 2006 on Google Earth, and a small building for sheep. The officer's objections seem to be loosely based around policies S1, S8, E4 and D1. Within these policies, there is provision for development of this scale and designed for an agricultural building on agricultural land. Contrary to what's been presented to you, we comply with all these policies in the LDP. Our employees deserve a decent environment and no ecological issues have been raised. We have shown a justifiable need for this modest low-level building that is in the only available site as you enter our farm. The building is sympathetic to the 3 nearest dwellings, which all have Essex weatherboard cladding. This site is completely shielded from the road by a hedge 12 foot high, 15 foot wide. This is not open countryside. Committee, I accept no one likes change, but this is a small building next to our house, not affecting.
I do have to stop you at the 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
I did have a blink with my...
Yes, it's unfortunate about the mic, but I won't make you go through it again. So, members. Councillor Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we go back to pictures, please? Sorry. I'll pick that up. Right, where the mobile home is, one with the mobile, it's to the right, as we're looking at that, to the right of the mobile home, correct? No? Yes.
As in the application site,
Yes.
it's south. It would be better to show you on the
Go on
plot
then,
plan.
please.
Thank you. So this is where the mobile home is located.
Right,
This is the existing access to the farmyard,
right.
and anybody accessing the farm office would have to cross the residential driveway to the property. So
Which is owned by the applicant.
yes.
Right, okay. Can we have a look at the pictures of the said development or office that it will be, please? Glorified stable. I'll take it, he says weatherboarding and slate or tiled roof, something like that, is it? Yeah, but
I'd have to
something I
look.
would think, in keeping. And there's already a building on the site, the gentleman says, and a load of concrete hard standing.
Not as far as my site visit showed. So that may have happened after I visited the site, but it was just open grassland.
I believe 2006 was mentioned. Right, okay. Can we go back to the farmyard pictures, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that one you just was at, please. Right, farmhouse, farm building. 8 people in his house. He said, no, that's not. No, thank you, Madam Chairman. Cheers.
Councillor Morgan.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just need a bit of education. I was under the impression that agricultural development was permitted. Why in this particular case is it not being?
Yes, through you, Chairman. So policy E4 says that develop new agricultural buildings would be supported subject to a list of criteria. And if you bear with me, I can name those criteria. So the first one is that there is a justifiable and functional need for the building/activity. The function of the proposed building/activity is directly linked and ancillary to the existing use. And the third one, the building/activity could not be reasonably located in existing towns, villages, or allocated employment areas. So this, within the report, we have assessed the location of the proposed office. So while we may consider that there is a justifiable need in terms of welfare facilities or washing area, it has been assessed that there's already a mobile home within the existing farmyard, within close proximity to the entrance to the site. And this farm office has not been justified to be located in this location, which you would have to walk through the residential property to access. This is the third iteration of this application. The previous applications have been withdrawn, and the initial application was submitted that this building would be used in conjunction with the dwelling house. So whilst the annotations of the floor plans have been changed to state that they would be office and welfare facilities, initially this building was proposed to be a workshop and garage for the dwelling house. So although there may be justification that the agricultural farm would need a building of this kind, it is considered that it could be better placed in close proximity to the existing agricultural farmyard, not in this location, and we don't feel that there's been adequate justification as to why it's been located here.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the reason this doesn't fall within E4 is just because where they've decided to locate it, and or rather officers' value judgment or subjective judgment as to that.
Through you, Chairman, yes, and also that insufficient information has been submitted in relation to the existing facilities on the site and why they wouldn't be adequate. So, for example, if the mobile home is currently being used as an area where members of staff are sitting, resting, washing, meetings are taking place, why a replacement of that mobile home with an adequate building would not be more reasonable than where it's currently located. So we have insufficient details about the existing welfare facilities on the site to therefore justify why an additional building in this location would be acceptable.
Thank you, but the officers do not deny that that building is going on on farmland. It's on land that is currently in agricultural use.
Through you, Chairman. Oh, do you want to say?
I don't mind. Sorry. I don't mind a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to just say that the policy clearly states that the council will support the development of new buildings or activities associated with agriculture. It clearly says that, yeah? but then the last word in that bit is that where, and then it lists the 3 points. So there needs to be the justification. So it's not the fact that we agree that it's on agricultural land. I mean, that's taken for a given as the starting point. The next is the justification. Use of the word subjective. It's an assessment which officers carry out as part of their professional judgment. Use of the word subjective is almost saying that anybody's comment is subjective. This is an informed, if you want to use the word subjective, an informed opinion based on us applying our professional appreciation, our understanding, having regard to similar other application and a consistency in approach. And in this particular application, the justification has not been provided to the standard we feel is appropriate for us to support this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, but going back, the applicant has made the point that the reason for the distance or its location is because of the, and recent, let's be honest about it, biodiversity hazard issues that have grown up with, you know, the avian flu, etc., which is a slightly more recent threat than perhaps had been in the when the previous applications had been made. How much weight was given to those considerations?
Through you, Chairman. I think if we're arguing that the land that the building would be on is agricultural and being used by farm animals, then its location away from farm animals and for workers to wash away from the farmyard on a piece of land that's actually used as part of the farmyard, that doesn't appear to correlate. But again, it is stated that although it might be justifiable that workers need to wash and there are welfare facilities, it's the location of it away from the farmyard that's not reasonable, and it's not directly linked to the farmyard is the consideration that's been made. Workers would have to cross the residential driveway to use these facilities, and yeah, it's not justified in our opinion.
Sorry, Madam Chairman, I'm just going to have to come back on that. That's complete, to my mind. Well, let's be polite. If you have facilities that are required to be carried out professionally on a particular site, the fact that those have to be, for various reasons, away from where perhaps the actual activity is going, does not mean to say that they're no longer part of that site. I just don't get the point the officers are trying to make. I really don't.
Mr. Johnson, at all? Don't have to.
In our assessment of the application in front of us, there's been no justification why the building could not be sited on the farm itself, where there is an existing mobile home. No justification for that has been submitted, and officers have the benefit of the history of this site or the history of a number of applications coming here, or which rather is manifested in terms of the application in front of you. That just does not follow. Now, we're not explicitly saying that there's any particular reasoning why there may have been different applications submitted beforehand, but this is the third iteration which provides an application which wasn't submitted in the first place if the need was required for quite some time. Now, if that was backed up with the fact of discounting any particular site on the farm itself as to why the building could not be found there, then that's something we would take into consideration. But that has not been demonstrated. There's not been that sort of sequential test, if you want to put it in that sort of way. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I can see the need for this at this particular farm, and I can understand the applicant coming forward with this particular thing. However, I like the officers, I really do not understand why they haven't cited it at the farm yard and why they're putting it in this particular paddock. The other strange thing is that the access to this building is around the other side. It's not even, the access isn't even facing the farmhouse. So to get into the building, you've got to go all the way around it. Yeah, so I could understand it a bit more if the access was to the building was on the other side of the building. Now we're talking about bird flu and you thought a mouse might happen again. Yeah, in terms of that, what tends to happen is they put a lot of restrictions around a farmyard, and they put the things that you've got to walk through right by the farmyard. So someone would have to come through to a domestic property, then get washed. And again, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I can definitely see the need for this, and I can understand that the landowner wants to do this, but I really can't understand why they want to do it in that particular location. And that's my concern, is that there's lots of other space that this could be done on where there is hard standing, where there are existing agricultural buildings. And we tend to pass agricultural buildings on pasture land when it's a barn that's used for, and there aren't any of the barns there, or for particular agricultural facilities. Again, this doesn't fit that. So yeah, I'm in two minds, obviously. So.
Thank you. Like you, I'd be concerned about the biosecurity of someone coming through my farmyard as a domestic dwelling. No. Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry, my eyes seem to be watering for some reason. I don't know why. I think I can see exactly why they've got the. We're farmers. And we used to have a lot of cattle. We don't now. I've only got horses now, but we used to have a lot of cattle. We used to have a mixed farm. And what we did on one of the other farms that we had, we specifically, it was when BSE first came around and nobody knew what was actually bringing on the BSE. We've since found out that it was actually contaminated feed, and we were given the choice at the time of either feeding a natural product or a chemical. We chose the natural additive. Turns out the natural additive was ground up sheep brain. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting away from the subject. So from there and all these other diseases we've had, we actually had to put in exclusion zones, and not the farm in Malden District, another farm, we had to actually build a welfare building. And we put it so it was near to the residential house because we wanted to make sure that the workmen going in and out didn't go anywhere near the farmyard and didn't go anywhere near the animals, and we could be certain that they weren't, because the wheel washes aren't entirely effective. So that worked for us to practicality. Now, I don't know if that's why this applicant has done that, but actually to me it makes perfect sense why he's put it there. As far as I'm aware as well, I think the applicant, if I'm correct, if I can see the blue line, I think they own all the land in front of the building. Do they own that pink bit? I think that's all in the application, in the same ownership on the right-hand side, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, so I mean, for me, they could have put another access in. There will have been a reason. There must have been a reason why they went round in front of the house. And I can only think it's because of biosecurity. And you can tell easily from the house when the workmen clock in, when the workmen clock out, and when they're going for their lunch. So for me, that makes absolute perfect sense. And that's I've sort of got to say on that one.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Siddle, come back to you.
I understand everything that Councillor White has just said. However, this building is 22 metres away from the existing farmhouse. So it's not even close to the existing farmhouse. So yes, that would be the case if it was 5 metres or so from the existing farm, but it's the fact that it's 22 metres away from the existing farmhouse. So it's not even close to that. So again, that makes it questionable in terms of its location.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson.
I'm just going to underline again, thank you, Chairman, that again, this application has not presented any particular justification. I am just mindful of justification being provided for the applicant, but this has not been enshrined within the application itself. Now, it may well be that an argument could be made, but this argument hasn't been demonstrated in what's been submitted within this application for us to support it, hence the position of where we are with this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Morgan.
Sorry, just doesn't sound like a rusty record, but are we just saying it is just purely the location of this unit that is giving officers difficulty?
Mr. Johnson, of course.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure about it's just giving officers difficulties, not because are applying the word of the plan. So this isn't anything personal in that sense. So I just need to just make that quite clear. You know, there is a presumption against buildings in the countryside unless it's for specific purposes, and those purposes must be justified. That's why we must apply the most rigorous of tests when we are considering these. And if those tests are passed, then and obviously other particular principles are accepted, then we would support the application. We do support applications where they are sufficiently justified, there's an appropriate design in front of us, and we feel that it's in line with the principles within the local plan. That's just not the case from officers' point of view here. Thank you, Chairman.
So it's all about the evidence, or not? Thank you.
Most
Mr.
definitely.
Johnson. Thank you. Councillor Siddle.
So therefore, could we defer the application and ask for the applicant to come forward with further evidence? And it's just an idea. And in terms of whether they could look at whether this could be cited elsewhere on the site, is that something that we could put forward as a recommendation,
Elsewhere
rather than just refusing it?
Elsewhere becomes a new application, but presumably evidence.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I'd be concerned about just deferring this for some more I mean, you know, effectively they'd be making a new application if it's of very similar kind, but issues would have been noted within refusals. Just for example, if this application were to be refused by members in the way officers have recommended, within that may be the basis from which they can go back and reconsider what needs to be done, provide more justification. These are the things that through an application that they can have a discussion with officers. Yeah, that's just not the case here. But it's definitely not one for deferral to get a bit more information, which would then may need to be subject to further consultation and things of that nature. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan.
I was just going to add that obviously if it was relocated, that would amend the red line and then it would be a new application. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Councillor Siddle. And it gets it out to the members of the public why we do and don't do what we do. That's why we do things in committee. Councillor Morgan.
Can I just say that I've listened to what officers have said. I fully understand the point they're trying to make, but I really don't think that I agree with the way that they have applied policy E4, and therefore I propose that this application be accepted, citing policy E4.
E4. Sorry, I'm just checking up the reason for refusal here. Just don't want to miss anything out. Okay. Have you got anything to add on S1, S8 or D1, Councillor Morgan?
Well, actually, funnily enough, going back to the previous application with regards to S1, I know that officers say that it, in fact, does comply with the S1 in terms of the S8 allowances. So we can add that S1 as well.
Now I'm confused. Sorry, S1 or S8. Sorry, could someone talk us through S1 and S8, please? Ms. Duncan would be.
Yes, policy S8 lists a number of accepted development within the rural area, which includes agricultural and forestry development in accordance with policy E4. So if you're saying that it's acceptable in relation to E4, then you're saying it's acceptable in relation to S8.
Yep.
Okay, and D1 is design and S1 is sustainability.
It doesn't have to be S1 because it's agriculture, isn't it? So it's not subject to S1. I think S1's gone because of E4.
Yes, I'm not.
I feel really rough actually, guys.
Yes, you don't. To be fair, you don't sound quite as good as you did. However, but yes, well, that satisfies a covering of the reasons for refusal. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. We'd have to delegate conditions to the officers, which we can do in consultation with me and, well, Councillor White as ward member. And okay, can we have a?
Has the proposal been put forward? Sorry.
Well, yes,
Okay.
I think it was. As long as your seconder is prepared to accept your, yeah. Okay, so can we have a show of hands in favour of the proposal to approve, Councillor Morgan? Okay, those against? And Councillor Siddle abstaining? Okay, fair enough. So, that being said, yes, we have, this application is proposed, the conditions will be delegated to officers. The next item on the agenda is item 7, any items of business that the chairman decides are urgent. You'll be delighted to hear there are none. So thank you to officers, members of the public. Thank you for your contributions, and I close the meeting at 8:35.